Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of my Devlog series covering the 2D action RPG Resonant Blade. It's definitely been a long time, but I've still been working on the game and have made quite a few changes since the last episode. Most of my recent updates have been related to art, in terms of character sprites, environment, and animations. I've also been testing out some new things with the sound design and trying out a few new mechanics as well. Instead of limiting myself to only using the tiles and Unity's tile map editor, I decided to use the tiles I created as a starting point. My process now is to piece together a map using some of the tiles and then finishing the rest of it inside of GIMP. This will probably be more time consuming in the long run, but it allows me to add small tweaks and details without having to redesign the tiles. Not to mention, I feel like I've learned quite a bit more about pixel art now and how to achieve the style that I'm going for. I started with Ionia City. I split it into two maps, an upper level and a lower level. The upper level includes things like the Citadel, Proto Labs, the Marketplace, a landing platform for a shuttlecraft, and an elevator leading to the lower level. It also has an outlook point where the player will be able to see the biodome encasing the city and the landscape on the other side of it. With this scene, I also added a few environmental effects, like distant ships flying across the sky and some animated waves in the ocean. After that, I started working on the lower level of the city. The lower level has residential buildings, a central plaza, an AI decommission factory, and a few other buildings. It also has an entrance to the subway and tunnel system. After creating these maps inside of GIMP, the next step was to add them into Unity. I couldn't just import the entire map though. I needed to export all the objects that would require some sort of interactivity like collision as a separate sprite, and then bring them into Unity. So far I've got most of this working with the lower level, but need to do the same process for the upper level map. For the main character, I've been working on a new design and have some run animations and attack animations. For the running animation, I threw in a subtle dust particle effect and sound effect for the footsteps. The footstep sound effect is triggered from an animation event. Basically, this event happens at a specific frame and then calls a function that plays back the sound effect and then triggers the dust particle effect as well. I also implemented a simple method for changing footstep sounds based on the material that the player is walking on. I basically add a collision component that's set to trigger, and that sits on top of the different floor types. So when the player collides with these, the footstep sound effect is switched out to match the different type of floor. I really liked how the attack animations turned out so far. There are 3 attacks in this animation, but these really only work for the left and right directions, especially with that overhead swing on the last one. So I'm just going to stick with the first 2 attacks for now. For the animations, I started using a pixel art software called Sprite, and I really like it so far. There's also a tool that makes the importing process of Sprite projects into Unity much smoother. I like that I can create multiple animations in one file and just tag certain frames or a group of frames for different parts of the animation. Also, being able to adjust the length of specific frames is really handy so that you don't have to duplicate a bunch of the same one to make it seem longer. I created a simple animation for a treasure chest, along with a little sound effect to match. I also started testing out some of the proximity mines that I wanted to make. Whatever resonant frequency you have selected will change the frequency and color of the mine that you put down. After setting the mine, a simple rotating graphic shows the proximity zone for setting the mine off, and this is only going to trigger if an enemy enters into that area. I started messing around with another mechanic, being able to push objects and platform jumping to different heights. These are going to play into the puzzle solving and the exploration aspects of the game. The focused listening ability has also been given a visual effect that kind of blurs the edge of the screen around the player to show when the ability is engaged. I created a simple sound scatterer system for handling dynamic soundscapes. With this system, I created a forest soundscape that has 6 audio sources, each with its own set of parameters, like time between repeats, volume, and stereo width. This forest soundscape draws from a bank of 26 sounds that are randomly selected and then played back from one of the 6 audio source objects. This makes sure that the player will never hear the same exact pattern of sounds while adding enough variety. I also played around with making spatial sounds more interactive. In this case, I used a waterfall. Its volume is attenuated based on the player's distance to it. When going inside a building, the waterfall sound is run through a low-pass filter, and a more muffled waterfall sound fades in. I ended up doing a similar thing with the background music. I created a short music cue that I split into 8 layers. The intensity of the music is represented by the number of layers that are playing. The intensity will increase based on the player movement, up to a certain point. After that, attacking will cause the intensity to go beyond this threshold so that eventually all of the layers can be heard. The background music and player weapon sounds use the same scale. This helps create a greater sense of interaction between the player's attacks and the music. That's it for this episode. If you liked the video and you want to see more, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.